Welcome, beautiful people, to Petrify the Patriarchy. I'm your guide, Joe B. If you're ready to unearth the subtle ways patriarchal culture has shaped your world and uncover the hidden power within your own shadow, you're in the right place. Here we don't just speak truth to power, we wield it, turning stagnant energies to stone so that your authentic, liberated self can truly flourish. Let the unlearning begin. Welcome back to Petrify the Patriarchy. I'm Joe B, your guide. I am here to talk about expecting non-closure when you are dealing with systems such as patriarchal systems. And I come to this honestly. It's a huge part of the work that I've done for years and years as a facilitator and an educator, that oftentimes you're left with more questions than answers. And when we're talking about systemic anything, institutional anything, when we're talking about culture itself, oftentimes we need to be left with our thoughts and our reflections in order to find ourselves in a different space, a different headspace, a different perspective moving forward. So today I really want to dive into this idea that non-closure it's unsettling for sure, but that the idea of closure is kind of a myth, which may feel odd for many of us because we like things to be wrapped up really nicely at the end of something. But if you think about a breakup, for example, oftentimes breakups aren't pretty, no matter how nice we try to make them, right? Those things don't get wrapped up in a tidy little box with a bow, right? Divorces are not easy. Breakups, no matter how, if it was short term, under 3 months maybe, or long terms, years and years, breakups are not easy. Untying yourself is not easy. And oftentimes you walk away without any answers, or answers that just don't feel right to you. And you have to wonder, is it worth confronting this person, or is it worth just letting it go, right? And so I kind of want to go through some ideas that help us better understand what non-closure looks like, feels like, sounds like, kind of thing. All right. So the first kind of bullet point is that closure is kind of a myth. And I know that's going to bring up a sense of unease, right? Remember, we're dealing with discomfort when we talk about a lot of the things that I focus on here. And discomfort is where learning happens. It's where growth happens. And so if you're feeling uneasy about the sense that, closure is a myth, let's just go through some of it, right? Because we're taught, again, that an ending needs to be tied up in a neat little bow, right? Like, we feel unfulfilled at the end of the movie if it doesn't meet our expectations of a happy ending, right? Or the book with a cliffhanger, and now we have to wait 3 years until the author finishes the next series, or maybe they just left it that way and now we're like, what? Right? Sometimes we expect an apology, and thinking about breakups, how often do you get an apology at the end of a breakup? Or that final confrontation because you just have to get that last word in, or some sense of moving on, right? And those are all very external sources of closure that we have no control over. And this is where, kind of the witchy woo part of all of this comes into play. The shadow work piece of it is that closure aspect has to come from our own internal sense of self and safety and belonging, and closure has to come from us. It can't come from those external sources. And patriarchal ideals kind of force us to operate in linear progress. And that sense of control of linear progress then sets us up for failure. That I'm not safe in my own self to trust that there is closure around this, for example. And that is definitely true because we're dealing with systemic issues, right? When we're talking about closure. So take my unfounded complaint, right? That in and of itself was really hard for me when I was in the midst of it, because how dare you tell me that my experiences are somehow not valid or that I didn't have them when I know that I did, right? The system, the institutional structure of the building that I worked within, based on their policy, for whatever reason, even though there's historical patterns and actual proof that this person does these things, that was not going, I was not going to get closure from the brick and mortar district that I worked in, because the system itself wasn't going to recognize that my experiences were anything more than just, me being uncomfortable. And it wasn't enough to recognize the historic pattern. It wasn't enough to recognize that this person is problematic, etc., etc., right? Like, I was not going to get closure in the way that I wanted closure. That the whole district needed to recognize that they fucked up big time by hiring somebody with this, historic component following him. I didn't get any of that, right? And no matter how many ways I tried to fight it or butt up against it, I got no response from the individuals in the system who for all, intents and purposes, I thought were quality human beings, but they end up following policy and practice, which is based in white supremacy culture and based in patriarchal culture. And those two things are going to uphold each other, especially when you're talking about something that is a part of a woman's experience, right? So for me, that myth of closure wasn't going to happen. What did I need to do? I had to take a year off to basically curl up in a ball and gain a ton of weight, because apparently I needed to spend some time eating my feelings and not moving from the sofa and not changing my clothes for a week and a half at a time. I needed to spend the time, trying to avoid any kind of anything by just streaming all the shows, anything to keep myself from thinking or feeling, right? So it wasn't until I had a moment of, okay, I have got to get my shit together, right? I didn't die. I wanted to, but I didn't. So maybe this myth of closure, maybe it's really the universe saying this path is no longer safe for you to walk on. I'm going to force you through the woods, over creeks with no bridges, and under fallen logs, and you're going to get dirty and you're going to get scratched by all the blackberry brambles, and right, like I'm going to send you off this direction to this other path. You have another direction, another purpose, and this part of your life is now closed off, right? Closure in the sense of that final wrap up, that everything is going to be tidy and neat and cool at the end of it. I think for me actually is, here's a whole other pathway that needs to open to you, so you can dive into your soul's purpose, the thing that aligns you out here in the world, in a way that fulfills you, versus fighting every day, butting heads every day against institutional and systemic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, patriarchal bullshit. If you're outside of a system, which, setting up my LLC has set me up outside of a system, I now don't have to operate in the system in the same way. I mean, I'm still a part of the US. I live in the United States, right? So I still have to operate to some degree from a systemic viewpoint, but I don't have to work within the system 24/7. It's why I can call myself an unlearning coach, an unlearning consultant. I can set myself up outside of that space and offer myself the closure that I need through a new purpose, that new path that I had to trudge through the forest to get to, right? So the myth of closure is, to me, when I look back on my journey these last 2, 3, 4 years, I'm looking back and saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to get the neat little tidy wrap up. I am going to get a whole new journey. And I'm ready for that. I'm ready to experience a journey outside what I've always known. And maybe at the end of that journey, it turns into something else, right? Like it's a constant shifting, changing, living. It's me living and doing while I'm living. So I offer that up to you. The myth of closure. It's not a thing. When we think of non-closure, particularly through patriarchy, right? Patriarchy's purposeful non-closure. This is because patriarchy is the system itself. It's the air we breathe. Like white supremacy culture and patriarchy, the two of them work hand in hand all the time. And when one of them fails, patriarchy fails, then you've got white supremacy to come in and go, whoop, yep, here we go. Right? They're always working together. And when one fails, the other will come in, right? Patriarchy is a system. It's not a single person. So the institution of education, where I found myself, right? And then the brick and mortar building, the systemic pieces, the practice and policy that are there, and then the greater community that I'm a part of and our social structures within that community, it's not a single person. It's all of us working within this particular system in a certain way. And you can't confront a system and get an apology from a system, right? Like, let's say even if my district had said, okay, we recognize this as a founded complaint. Now what? Does that mean I feel any better about the experiences that I had? I mean, it might have changed the outcome as to whether or not I actually needed to take a mental break from my job and reevaluate everything for myself and try to work on healing. Maybe I wouldn't have felt like, I wouldn't have felt suicidal. Maybe I'd still be working in that district. Maybe. But I'll tell you what, prior to all of that, I was already struggling with operating within the system because I saw so many issues and the issues were never fully dealt with. Because I'm one person trying to confront the entirety of education in my one little classroom, right? I'm never going to get an apology from the system. I got apologies from individual people along the way. I got an apology from the superintendent. I got an apology from the district's attorney. I got an apology from the director of HR. All of them apologized. But does that ultimately make me feel any better? No, it didn't make me feel any better at all. In fact, it felt patronizing. It felt like, I don't understand why you're apologizing to me. A, you didn't do anything except uphold practice and policy that is, highly harmful. But B, your apology doesn't erase the fact that you hired somebody with a history. You chose to ignore this, and other people got harmed along the way, right? That doesn't help me. The very nature of systemic harm means that the source of the wound may never be held accountable, admit fault, or offer an explanation, right? And I can say that for a fact. In going through, a sexual harassment complaint, making it official, they never held themselves accountable. They never admitted any fault. They never offered an explanation. I got none of that. And that was hard, really fucking hard to deal with. I don't know why helicopters are flying over my house so low. Probably get the dogs barking again. Dang it. So the system is designed to protect itself. It's not designed to protect individuals. It's designed to protect itself. And patriarchy wants to continue patriarchy, right? This leaves individuals without a sense of justice. This leaves us feeling hung out to dry, right? This leaves us in positions of continued harm because, again, the system doesn't want to change. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do, what it's always been designed to do. It's always been designed for men, by men, particularly white, wealthy, Euro-Christian, heterosexual men, right? Those are the people that will always be okay. And the rest of us, for one reason or another, are going to find our marginalized intersections and be harmed. And we know that non-closure is always going to be there. We're not ever going to see that kind of justice. Now, would I love to see that? For sure. That's why I'm here. Excuse me, that's why I'm here. Hoping others are listening, hoping others are like, fuck yeah, let's go out there and make change where we know how to make change. Because each of us taking our part and doing our thing elicits more change. It's not one person against the system, it's all of us attempting to change the system through new perspectives, through nuanced living, through our experiences. Are we going to see personal closure? Maybe not necessarily. But can we help shift non-closure to a more balanced space? Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So when we think of Medusa's connection here, we have to also think of the myth of Medusa, right? And Medusa's fate was an act of patriarchal violence. She was punished because a male god lusted after her and raped her. And there's no apology from Poseidon, right? The god who raped her. There's no apology. And there's no justice from Athena, the goddess who doled out the ruling, right? And her story, like so many who experience patriarchal harm, is non-closure. We have our own battles. We have our own armor. We have our own dealings with mistrust, whether it's with ourselves, whether it's with others, whether it's the jaded humor we throw out there to offset the fact that fuck it, this is never going to work, right? But here's the important piece. Accepting non-closure is not giving up. It is reclaiming your own power because you're no longer waiting for a system to provide closure. You know it's never going to do that. But if I can provide that for myself, how fucking powerful is that? And there are so many ways that somebody can do that, right? I had to curl up in a ball for the better part of a year. I just had to do that. That's just where I needed to land. I don't call it acceptance. I call it reclaiming. I'm using these series of experiences to reshape my life, to do the things that I know that I have a talent for, a thing that allows me to be able to speak to others, to shift their perspectives so that they don't continue the harm, right? That's that interconnectedness for me. So when we shift from that external to internal validation, like I was talking about earlier, right? Healing from patriarchal harm doesn't have to be something that we see on, on TV in a courtroom drama, right? The validation that we're seeking from that external source, that apology, the new policy, the admission of guilt, the somebody goes to jail, this is not required for your own healing. And I would even argue, does it make you even feel any better? You might have a little bit of a, well, there is at least some sort of legal outcome here that I can say, yep, cool, that was taken care of. But the work to accept your own reality and validate your own experience, that's your own journey. It's not easy. It is not easy. I'm not even going to pretend that it is. It is hard. But the sense of liberation that comes from that, I can't even begin to describe to you. Do I still have work to do? Oh yeah. I'll never be done. I'll never be done breaking down, my own unlearning, let alone, anybody who comes to me asking for supports, an organization who needs me to help them come in and train their HR department in patriarchal culture, right? Or that course that I'm going to facilitate this coming weekend at a conference, right? Like, there's only so much that I can do, but I can also help you to accept your own reality and validate those experiences that you've had, and how you can take that and help others shift in a new direction, which benefits people coming after you. It benefits your friends at work. It benefits your children, right? We're all making baby steps every single day that hopefully allows for the betterment of our future generations. We can do that by validating our own experience, reflecting, doing our own shadow work on why it's so fucking hard to not be able to, work through this non-closure thing simply and easily. Right? So the last little bit here that I want to talk about is accepting, your unfinished story, because your journey, your story, it's not a book with a final chapter, right? You keep writing as you keep going. It's a living, breathing, evolving process. And embracing non-closure means finding peace and liberation in the process of unlearning and healing. It's about understanding that your strength comes from within. You don't need someone else. You don't need the system. You don't need a law that says, I got this. I know what happened to me. I know how to make changes, regardless of what, again, the external world provides to you or dismisses you with. And this allows you to stop waiting for permission to heal. Had I had more sense of internal self a year ago, how much further along would I be now if I had more of that sense of self? That shadow work, that deep knowing that I got this, regardless of the outcome, that's an imperative aspect to life that we're not teaching our children. Children need to grow up knowing, I got this. We got to do better as adults, and we got to do better as a system, knowing that we all have the capability to give ourselves what we need. It doesn't have to come from someone else. It shouldn't come from someone else or something else or a policy, right? It comes from within. And that non-closure then becomes a catalyst for huge change. And that's the space that I find myself in now. Huge change. When I stopped chasing closure from that broken system, I've been able to redirect all of that energy toward me and building a system for me, my own community, my own personal sense of what I need in my own entrepreneurship, in my own journey through all the stuff I'm navigating, right? I'm redirecting into that. I can live the life that I want to live without the pressure from external sources in the way that I had before working within the educational system. And the lack of closure from the old system has become that tool for me. It fuels my transformative work. And it's not coming from a place of anger. It's coming from a place of, holy shit, I do have this. I do get this. I do understand this. I do know what I want to do. I do know how I want to exist outside of this now. And I can tell you, I know this for a fact because 2 weeks ago I had an interview. I was asked to apply for a position at a building here, a school locally, where many of my friends work, right? So I knew working in a building with my friends would be a really solid adventure, particularly because I know they're out there doing this work too, right? And we do it together collectively. So for me, if I'm going to get back into the system, I'm going to get back into the system with the people I know who are trying to take down the system from within, right? Like, okay, cool. Let me be that revolutionary with you. And the interview was probably one of the worst interviews of my life because the questions were terrible and that they didn't offer me a sense of diving in and really showing them who I am and how I've got this. They were very surface. And then I can't even remember the questions now, but one of the questions, I said something in response to the question. I said something like, I've been out of the system for a year now. And this is me speaking as a holistic person, someone who's struggled to really find myself up until, these last few months. I don't think there's anything that I could do in this position that would get me to be able to alter the system from within, unless I am able to take on this position with a lot of autonomy and be able to really think creatively outside of everything that I know about the system to offer scholars a different perspective of life outside. Because not all of them are going to go to college. Not all of them want to go to trade school. So why don't we start thinking about our classes, the things that we offer, in a different way, number one, that feels relevant to them, number two, and number three, maybe even starts them on a path. So by the time they graduate high school, maybe they've already got their own entrepreneurship. I was pretty bold with what I was offering them. I also didn't care. I knew in speaking my truth, I knew that the non-closure that I had just experienced in coming through the system was not going to sit well with them. And sure enough, I didn't get the job. And I'm like, cool. It just solidified everything I needed to know. I don't need to go back. I don't need to participate in this. I'm doing something new. I'm doing my own thing. And I'm good with this. I'm really good with this. Non-closure is your catalyst for change. It doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it can become the most liberating journey that you've been on. So, as we move through topics, as we move through the research that I've done in the coming months, just know that this is an aspect to it. There's going to be non-closure. You may not like what you're being told. You may not like what you're hearing. You may not like the idea that you've been complicit in patriarchal customs. And I'm not asking you to do anything other than maybe just listen and reevaluate, maybe do some reflection. That non-closure can be very powerful. I'm not going to be able to solve all of patriarchal issues in one in one podcast episode. Although I wish I could. That's not how this is going to work. So just think about non-closure being a friend. Maybe frenemy might be a good word, right? Like you don't necessarily love them, but they're close to you. And at some point, you go out for coffee and realize you have more in common than you thought you did. Maybe that's how we look at it. Non-closure is our frenemy. My experiences have led me to this place. Non-closure is not awesome, and it is an enormous catalyst for change. I'm leaving you there. All right, friends. Joe B signing off. Hey, I do want to tell you that my children's book, I'm a Proud Little Band book, probably, is on sale currently from August 19th through September 10th. And I will put the link in the show notes. You can go and grab that for yourself. I believe it's on all major publishing sites like Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. I've self-published through Lulu, so that's the link that I'll put in the show notes for you. Back to school sale. So from now until September 10th, my book is on sale. And let's see, there was something else I was going to tell you, but I've now forgotten. Oh well, not important, I guess. All right, Joe B signing off. Be sure to check out my website, Moving Maxim, for my frameworks. Contact me if you're looking for unlearning coaching or consulting for your organization. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to sign up for, subscribe to Petrify the Patriarchy for more content coming your way. Share if you find this valuable. Share with others. You never know what's going to spark someone's interest. And thank you again for being here. I appreciate all of you. Joe B, again, signing off.